everybody, welcome back to Q-Tips. We are the Video Store Junkies, and we are back once again to bring you a few selections to watch over the weekend on streaming. And we're going to get right into this, and I'll send this over to Bill.
Why, thank you. So my theme this week is the films of David Cronenberg, which I was surprised that there were a few that weren't on the list of ones we've already covered, or I just did a bad search. We'll find out. So the first one is his first one. I mean, he made a few shorts, some weird, hipster avant-garde shorts and everything that no one's ever seen. But his first real movie where someone gave him money and he decided to make a movie, this was like the Canadian national film stuff, and they tried to make good films and nobody went to see them. And then they made like softcore porn, and that was more successful. So he said, let's make a horror movie. And we get 1975's Shivers, also known as They Came From Within. But I would recommend you watch Shivers on, I think it's on Roku. It's definitely on Tubi, and I think I watched it on, Shudder, but I don't see it listed here as being there. But it's also on YouTube. Pretty good copy. Shivers is the one that kind of got him some attention, and by attention, it got him kicked out of his apartment. Yeah, they were. Some Canadian critic wrote a review that is possibly the worst review any movie has ever gotten. It was like, you should hate this movie and the fact that you paid for it, because it was paid with taxpayer dollars, so it became kind of a scandal. Yeah, and it's kind of an introduction to the Cronenberg body horror thing. It's about this large apartment complex, and it really reminded me of why I hated living in things like that. It's really the villain of the piece. I mean, there's also sex parasites, but really the villain of the piece is this horrible living conditions that these people are in. And, this crazy doctor has made a parasite that he implants in people, and it turns them into absolute sexual deviants that are not only trying to hump everything in sight, but spread more of these disgusting parasites. It's got some of the things that make Cronenberg great. There's a real sterility to the way he's filming. Some early Cronenberg is very almost clinical in its way. That changed over the years, but this one's it's kind of like a low-budget Kubrick look. But it's also got one of the problems that some Cronenberg films have, and there are even some that I really like Scanners. He cast the absolute worst leading men for his movies. The leading man in this thing is a guy who actually was kind of famous for writing songs, but not for acting, because he's terrible in this. I've never seen anyone underplay a role so much as he did here. And it just takes you right out. There's no one really to root for. So there's a problem with the film, but it's got a good secondary cast. Lynn Lowry is phenomenal. She's so attractive and creepy looking at the same time. And Barbara Steele is in here, and she's, of course, amazing. It's got some nice early bladder effects by Joe Blasco. It's got that classic 1970s downbeat ending. It's got a lot going for it. I don't think it's ever been remade, and I hope no one ever does remake it, because it'll be terrible. It's probably rated R, but it's cool the way he shows things. It's an uncomfortable film. So he's showing that everyone in this complex has just gone completely insane. But he can't really show a lot. So there's a scene where the guy is running down the hallway, and we're treated to one episode after another. There's a couple of young girls that are on leashes barking like dogs. There's two obviously homosexual guys from the 70s, because they have mustaches and receding hairlines, and they make a go for him. And there's a scene where he opens the door, and there's a guy there with his daughter, and he's talking about how attractive his daughter is, and you're like, close the damn door as soon as... Yeah, and oh my God, there's just so much creepiness, but it's all implied. That you don't really see a whole lot. Thank God. I mean, it's just, this film. So if you want to see early Cronenberg showing the promise that he would later... It's good. I mean, it's well made and everything, but he admits he hardly knew what he was doing when he made this film. And if that's the case, here's the evidence that the guy's a genius, because there's a lot to recommend for it. So that's Shivers, 1975. Not a great first date film or something to watch with grandma, unless grandma was really something in her younger days. And that's possible. And I will send this off to someone who makes me shiver, Paul.
Oh, why? Thank you, Bill.
Well,
Yeah, I
that's
want
when
to
you
second
take your.
that.
If you the thought of you taking your shirt off makes me shiver. Not in a good way.
With the light, I'm sure. With the
Absolutely,
light.
that must be it. Yeah.
Well, let me tell you. Let me tell you a story. So here we have a man, late middle age, working hard at his job, does an excellent job, like to the point of art, really to the point of art. But the people he works for just don't appreciate it. They don't appreciate the hard work that this man does, and and they let him go, and he has to go, and he has to figure out what he wants to do with the rest of his life. And
Hmm.
well, anyway, aside from that, let me tell you about the movie that I'm bringing up tonight, and
Oh,
that
very
is
good.
delicious. Yeah, it's delicious, or delicieux, which is because it's French,
Oh.
and it is currently streaming on. Oh, my mouse went away. There we go. It is currently streaming on Amazon Prime, Peacock, Roku Channel, Hoopla, Tubi, of course, Canopy, and Plex. And so the year is, I think, 17. Look at it, I have it now. 1789. So it's right before the Revolution,
Hmm.
and we have Pierre Manseron, who is a cook chef for uh, some nobility, and through sequence events, they basically fire him. He goes home to his family's. It's not really an inn. It's more of a what they call a relay. So you don't stay there, but you'll stop and you might get some soup and you'll feed your horses.
Hmm.
They did some baking. Long story short, through a sequence of events, he essentially, he as well as a woman who joins him, says she wants to be she wants to apprentice with him. The two of them essentially create the modern restaurant. Now, in reality, that's BS because I think of course, restaurants have been around for thousands of years. I mean, they found essentially ancient steam tables in Pompeii with the painted menus right on front. But the modern idea of a restaurant, even that is supposedly like 600 years earlier.
Hmm.
I think the Chinese had regular sit-down restaurants. But yeah, why ruin a good story with facts? And it does get a little, uh, Shakespeare in Love kind of thing, where you're like, oh look, and this is where the menu came from, and this is where the maitre d' came from. Still, it's really fun. It's really enjoyable, and it's a story about, again, somebody who has to start over again, and they reinvent themselves, and it's really
Hmm.
enjoyable. So that's delicious, or delicieux, which is in French, and yes, it is in French, and it's I really highly recommend it. And speaking of people who are delicious, I'll pass this to Zach.
It's true. My undies say so. Um, hey, Paul, you remember once upon a time when you would actually get kind of excited when there was a new Robert Rodriguez movie coming out?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, those times have passed us by. But if you haven't seen all of his movies, I can maybe get you excited about one that is actually kind of a recommendation for Bill.
Oh.
Because I know that he's loving school a whole lot right now. His school is back in session, and he just can't get enough. And my recommendation is a school-themed horror film from Robert Rodriguez. It's one of his earlier films. I'm, of course, talking about 1998's The Faculty. And this is a pretty straightforward movie. Yeah, it's a just a ripoff of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and that's pretty much it. And I think that it's easy to kind of, if you're not familiar with this movie, kind of write it off as that, because that's pretty much all there is to it. But it's actually a really good ripoff, so we can kind of excuse that. It's got a great cast. It's basically about a bunch of high schoolers that realize that they're teachers, and the titular faculty in their school is being replaced by aliens. And they have to figure out how to stop them. This one has a phenomenal cast. I just want to read some of the names off here, some of the people who are in this movie. Jordana Brewster, Clea Duvall, Selma Hayek, Femke Jensen, Piper Laurie, Christopher McDonald, a.k.a. Shooter McGavin, BB Newirth, Jon Stewart, and Usher. Lots of great actors in this movie. Although, kind of a little bit of trivia here. Some of the other actors in this movie: Josh Hartnett, who just recently starred in Oppenheimer about the creation of the atomic bomb, and Robert Patrick, who starred in a movie about the use of atomic bombs, T2 Judgment Day, and Elijah Wood, who had recently starred in North, which was a huge bomb. So there's a connection there. But no, I kid. No, it's a great movie. It's a fun movie. Like I said, I mean, it's pretty straightforward in the fact that it's just a ripoff of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but it's lots of talent. The young actors do really well. Obviously, a lot of them would go on to do a lot of other great things, and then you have some of the older actors, some of the more experienced actors who just do really, really good jobs as the creepy teachers that are getting replaced by aliens. So, yeah, if you're in school right now and you want to watch movies about school when you get home, this one's playing on Paramount Plus, Hoopla, Pluto TV, and it says the Criterion Channel. I don't know if I believe that. I don't know if there's actually a Criterion. I'm actually going to Google that right now because I'd be really surprised if there was a Criterion release of The Faculty, and apparently there is. Okay, never mind. So yeah, it's playing on the Criterion Channel, and I'm gonna go find I might go find the Criterion Blu-ray of this because I did not know that was out. Anyways, so yeah, speaking of people who may or may not have been replaced by alien imposters, I am going to pass this over to Renee for her first pick.
Thank you very much. And you'll never know. That's a good recommendation. I really like that movie. And there's a fun theory that ties that movie into The Cabin in the Woods.
Oh,
Which is, yeah, one of my favorite movies. Yeah. So my first recommendation is a twofer. They're both only about an hour long. These are two films by a young up-and-coming filmmaker in Austin, Texas by the name of Isaac Rodriguez. He's got a lot of short films, only a handful of, say, feature movies. A lot of them focus on found footage and technological horror. And the first one is Unknown Visitor. And just a little brief overview, after moving into a new house, a young woman experiences a terrifying series of encounters, all captured via her Ring doorbell. And it just kind of, all these things that are going on, it kind of tells this little story, and it's interesting. But I think it's worth watching. It's an interesting story, interesting concept. It just feels a little bit more like a short than a full feature film. The other one is called The Last Radio Call, and it is about a woman who is investigating the disappearance of her husband, who was a police officer who went missing in an old hospital when he was responding to a call. And she really gets into this, and she does a lot of research on it. And there's one part in the movie, one of my new favorite lines in a movie, which is, "I have no life and I have no shame and I'm not going to stop." Yeah, I thought that was pretty good. Anyway, yeah, so that's a pretty good movie, and it kind of dives into some Native American lore, which I found fairly interesting. And so, yeah, those are two short films. You can find both of them, I believe, on Amazon Prime and on Tubi. There's a couple other short films you can see by this gentleman, Isaac Rodriguez. And yeah, so that's my recommendation, and I will throw this back.
But before we move on, are you going to tell us the? Sorry,
Oh, the connection.
Yeah, are you going to tell us the connection between The Faculty and, or are you going to save that for the end?
I could save it to the end.
Oh, okay. That'll be that'll
Okay.
listen after the credits, folks, and you can hear this thing.
A stinger. There you go. I like it.
I like it. Yeah, good.
So on that note, I'll throw this over back to Bill.
Okay, so continue with David Cronenberg. So he made Shivers, good movie, but with a weak leading man. He then made Rabid, which is a better movie, but I honestly don't even remember who the leading actor was in it. Frank Moore. He was adequate, but it also had Marilyn Chambers in her first non-porn role, and she's actually okay in it. It's a pretty cool film. Then he made Fast Company, a racing movie. It's the one Cronenberg movie no one's ever seen. It has no body horror or horror of any kind. And I haven't seen it. I don't know if he managed to beat the leading man problem, because the leading man is William Smith, who's not a great actor, but I'm not going to say anything because he could kill me. Even though he died 2 years ago, I would not put it past him to rise from the grave and kick my ass. And then finally we get to, oh no, there was The Brood. He made The Brood, which starred Art Hindle. Who? And it had Oliver Reed. You know, that's the thing. He had these great secondary characters. I mean, if you had Oliver Reed in your movie, why would you not cast him to be the leading role? And the obvious answer is then you'd have to make the whole movie with Oliver Reed, and at some point he's going to punch you in the mouth. You know? I mean, Gary Busey looks at Oliver Reed and says, damn. You know, there was just... But his next film, Scanners. And Scanners was really the one that put him on the mark. Who can forget that head blowing up scene? And everything about this movie, this is one of the best superhero movies that no one ever thinks of as a superhero movie. This is what if the X-Men were real. It's absolutely great. It's got Patrick McGoohan, Jennifer Neal, and Michael Ironside, who's absolutely terrific. But it stars Stephen Lack. And if you're saying, who? Yeah, Stephen Lack is so terrible in this movie, he almost goes completely in a 180 and becomes good at it. Because he's playing this tortured individual who's, you know, is constantly voices in his head and everything. And he's so overacting sometimes and underacting other times and acting a completely different script other times that you start thinking, well, you know, maybe that's what it would be like to be this guy. But mostly you just think, dang, they should have made Michael Ironside the hero and just cast this guy or something else. I take nothing. He's apparently a very accomplished artist who has gone on to bigger and better things. He only acted in like 9 movies, and you'll see why. So, oh my gosh, this is so good. It really is cool. It's about these mutants that can scan each other and blow up heads, and it's got some just over-the-top gore. It's got some fantastic, I'm pretty sure it was Dick Smith who did the effects. Great climax. This is just a really fun movie, but it is anchored by this weak, terrible performance. Everyone else in it is fine, but Stephen Lack, who's the guy we're following, and I mean, that's a big deal. It just doesn't work. I will say, someone must have talked to him at some point and said, damn, man, you know, you got so much going for you here. Can you find some quirky people? I mean, he would cast folks who were like offbeat. But they were offbeat, and you know, no one else would make them leading men. And then you find out the reason they're not good at it. Can you find someone who's a little offbeat but can carry a film? And by God, in Videodrome and The Dead Zone and The Fly, that trifecta, he finally worked it out. He finally found some actors who could give him that Cronenberg quirkiness. You know, James Wood and of course, Dead Zone, Christopher Walken, and who is The Fly? Who played the Fly?
Jeff Goldblum.
Thank you, Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum.
I mean, these are all guys that are definitely, there's something off, but they're great at what they do. And they were, you know, those are probably the 3 best films. Well, you could argue about that, but just really good. So I really like Cronenberg. I love his stuff. He's just not an actor's director. So he needs to have actors who can bring something to the table. Because he's just going to let them go, and if they're terrible, they're going to be terrible on screen. But I do recommend Scanners. Go ahead.
You know who I really like in Scanners and some of the other Cronenberg movies he was in? Robert Silverman, who plays the. I think he's like yeah. You know.
I don't know if that was his name. Hold on.
He's the artist.
Well, there's Joe Silver. You thinking Joe Silver? He has a really deep voice. Robert Silverman.
No. Yeah. Oh. You'll know exactly who I'm talking about when you see him.
I'll look it up.
I just wanted to mention him because he was also in one of my favorite films ever. He played the hydraulic in 1995's Waterworld. But more importantly, can I just interject? Right. I just want to give a little teaser here. Another movie that Robert Silverman was in, a little movie called Jason X, and you know who else was in Jason X? You know who else was in Jason
David
X,
Cronenberg.
Right? David Cronenberg.
Yes.
And if you'd like to, I'm going to give you this little teaser here, okay, unplanned. But if you'd like to go back and watch Jason X and all the other 11 Jasons, because there were 12 of them, coming up next month, we're going to have an episode where we talk about the entire Friday the 13th series. So yeah, this is my unannounced little teaser, starting on, appropriately enough, Friday the 13th, October. we're gonna start ranking every single movie in that series. So go back and watch them now. Okay, sorry. Back to
Will
your,
this be
originally-
like our? Will this be like our infamous and well downloaded deep dive through the Halloween franchise?
Oh yes, and despite despite Renee's derisive snort, by the way, that is actually our most downloaded episode of all time. Number
there
one
you
and
go.
number 2 are the 2 Halloween episodes. So yeah,
And
apparently
I'll tell you the
people
truth,
like them.
I am looking forward to this because I think I mentioned before. Halloween, the original Halloween, is a far better film than almost all the Friday the 13th put together.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
However, that being said, I much prefer the Friday the 13th franchise.
yes.
Because although
They're
it didn't- it
consistently
didn't start-
mediocre.
right? It didn't start very high, but it didn't really go very low.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Halloween
Exactly.
has some absolute stinkers that are torture to sit through, especially
Got some
compared
lows.
to what inspired them. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this. And I will
right.
send this right back to Paul.
Why? Thank you, Bill. Yeah, definitely second scanners. Good stuff. So let me tell you. So here we have a person who, they've got plans, not maybe the greatest plans, they get some plans for their future, and then they're derailed. Well, things happen, like they get let go from the job they thought they had,
Wow.
and things were going well, and then they just kind of wander aimlessly, and they're trying to find direction, and they're not sure what they're doing. Well, enough about that. Let me tell you about the movie I'm going to recommend.
God.
It's called Frances Ha, written by Noah Baumbach and Greta Gerwig, directed by Noah Baumbach, and starring Greta Gerwig as the title character. And this film perfectly captures, I think, that feeling in your like mid to late 20s when you're like, waiting for my life to start? What's going on? You look at your other friends who their lives have started and yours hasn't. And so she's a young dancer in New York, and she's rooming with a really, best friend from college, and then things just kind of get derailed. She has to find a place to live. She loses her job, and then she's not sure what she's going to do. And everyone kind of looks at her like, "What are you going to do?" And so it's sort of her process of discovering who she is and finding what she wants to do in life. It's a comedy drama, but again, I think what's great about it is it really captures that feeling when you're in your early mid-20s, when you're like, I'm waiting for my life to start, right? When's my real life going to start?
Wait, I'm in my late 30s and I'm still waiting for my life. Was I supposed to get
I
over
didn't
that
say,
at some
Hey,
point?
look. Yeah, let me tell you this way. I'm at 56 and I'm still waiting for it. So,
Oh, okay. What?
You're
You're
all gonna
still
make
waiting
me
for my
cry.
life to get started?
Yeah.
yeah, I'm still waiting for life to get started, Zach. I'm like, when's Zach going to get this shit?
Yeah, well. Don't hold your breath, buddy.
Yeah.
So, where can you watch Frances Ha? That's HA. It's on Netflix, AMC Plus, the Criterion Channel, Tubi, of course, Canopy, DirecTV, and Netflix. So that's Frances Ha. But speaking of people who actually I think really do have their shit together, I really do think you do, Zach. I pass it to Zach.
Well, I appreciate that you have so many delusions about me. Well, Paul, if there's one thing that everyone says about me, it's that I'm a huge political junkie, and I think you know this about me. I can't stop talking about politics, which means that this upcoming year it's going to be huge for me. But I just can't wait until 2024. I need some politics in my life right now. And luckily, I have a movie queued up, ready to watch, all about politics. It's appropriately called Election. This is the 1999 film starring Reese Witherspoon and Matthew Broderick. It is a comedy, but it is a very dark comedy with lots of very, very inappropriate subject matter. I don't want to spoil too much, but let's just say Reese Witherspoon plays a high school student who is running for the president of her high school, and she's pretty sure that she's going to win because I believe she's running unopposed, and she's a go-getter. She's doing everything that she can to get elected, and then for reasons I won't mention, Matthew Broderick steps in and decides to try to sabotage her. And it's a really, really funny movie. This is by Alexander Payne, who I actually haven't seen. Like, I know that he's a a popular director. I know that a lot of his movies are, I guess, well touted, but I've never seen. He did Sideways, and kind of trying to remember some of the other movies he did. But he's done a couple of these movies that are kind of like indie comedies. I haven't actually gone and watched any of these other ones, but I guess if you like his stuff and you haven't seen this one, check it out. But yeah, it's really hilarious. I mean, Broderick is so good in it. Reese Witherspoon, I mean, I think this was one of her earlier roles, and she knocks it out of the park. It's also got Chris Klein as one of the other students that ends up running. And after watching this, I was kind of like, I wonder why. I mean, Chris Klein, he had a career. Like, he's been in other stuff, but it feels like he never like blew up. And I don't know. He's very, very funny in this movie, and I kind of wonder why he was never more successful. But anyways, so yeah, Election, if you're like me and you just can't get enough politics, it's playing on Max and Canopy right now, and I recommend you go check it out. And speaking of people that I suspect were go-getters and trying to climb the ladder even in high school, I'll pass this over to Renee.
I had my microphone muted, so you couldn't hear me laughing in the background. But I appreciate that idea. So here's the part of the show where I have to beg forgiveness, because over the weekend, like Paul mentioned, he was visiting his parents. So that left my sister and I alone to our own devices to watch movies. And we watched a shark movie. Yeah, I'm so sorry.
No, that's right. I was informed. So,
so this movie is about a group of friends that are visiting a lake house in the Louisiana Gulf. And you know what happens sometimes when there's hurricanes and crazy things, and next thing you know, there's a shark in the lake. And so these friends, they are dealing with these sharks that are in this lake in Louisiana. So it is your good old classic killer shark movie, but the plot really isn't that bad. Like, it actually has a plot. Like, it actually has like a little story. There's maybe a little tiny bit missing, but it's a pretty decent story for what it is. But what is really interesting about this movie is the cast. Everybody in this movie is just kind of known for their supporting roles or being parts of ensemble casts. So the primary actress in this is Sarah Paxton. She did a lot of acting when she was a kid. She led the movie Aquamarine. It was like a kid's movie back in the day about a little mermaid. Anyway, she played the mermaid in question. Dustin Milligan, who played Ted from Schitt's Creek.
Yay.
Joe David Moore, who you might know from Bones or Grandma's Boy. Josh Leonard, who I think is interesting because he was in the Blair Witch Project. And I think his character, is that his name? Yeah, Joshua Leonard. Yeah, and his character's name was Josh in the Blair Witch Project, because you remember they weren't actually actors. They were real people. Chris Carmack, who was in Nashville and Grey's Anatomy forever. But one person that you will definitely recognize is Donald Logue. So my sister would recognize Donald Logue from Grounded for Life. My dad would recognize him from Vikings. But if you are one of the real ones, you will you will know him as Quinn from what movie, Zach?
I believe that would be 1998's Marvel comic adaptation Blade.
Ooh.
That's right. Yeah. So this movie just has a kind of a crazy cast, and you just look at all of them and you're like, where do I know all of these people from? Oh, and it has Catherine McPhee too from American Idol, which is like a totally random add-in. So anyway, this movie is pretty entertaining for what it is. So, the cast really is, the actors are good and the story is not terrible. So I'd recommend it. But please also, if you watch this movie, you have to stay to the post-credit scene, and you will see a lot of them, but most notably Dustin Milligan, aka Ted from Schitt's Creek, in a whole new light. So yeah, that's my recommendation, and it is Shark Night, and you can watch that on Tubi, and I forgot to look up where else you can watch it.
Does it need anywhere else? I mean, if it's
I
on
don't really
Tubi.
think it does. Yeah. So that's all we've got. Does anybody have anything to sing and or wrap us out with?
Oh boy. Oh, I got nothing. I've forgotten that we started to do this, and I always just waited for Paula to start singing. So
Yeah.
I'm kind
I
of
could-
surprised you didn't do a memorial song when the lead singer of Smash Mouth died.
Oh,
That's true, but
Oh, that
but
is
I
true.
think
Do like an acoustic version?
but I don't feel like I can anymore.
I would like to point out that while we're recording this, the amazingly underreported news is that an F-35 stealth fighter jet, the guy ejected out of it, and he's fine, which is great, but this stealth fighter, no one can find it, which, okay, it's a stealth fighter. I mean,
Yeah, there you go.
you can say, hey, we didn't see that coming, but
It
of
works
course
well.
we wouldn't. Yeah.
Hey.
And then, but here's the thing. They keep adding little bits and like, and we can't find it. And it's possibly flying in what we amusingly call a zombie state because the pilot put it on autopilot and apparently it can fly on its own. It's like the next thing they're going to say is, and it was
And it
armed
had a
with nuclear
nuclear warhead.
bombs. and we were experimenting with some AI technology that in retrospect was probably should have been, developed a little further. And we
wasn't
welcome
this-
our robot overlords. And I mean, yeah, so
Wasn't this the plot to Stealth? Does anyone remember that movie?
yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
Apparently the people who don't remember it run the Air Force.
The people who
and
perfect.
you're like, surely this is the headline on every paper. And no, the headline on
Well-
every paper is these two little rock aliens that some guy was showing in Mexico, and apparently aliens look a whole lot like carved stone.
to paraphrase, speaking
Yeah.
on the jet fighter thing, to paraphrase a very smart man, I guess you'd say perhaps if you watched a few more movies, you'd be better at your job.
Where is such wisdom today? Yeah. So
That was a callback
who
to-
knows?
To last week, by the way, guys. If you haven't
that's,
looked at that
yes, that's right. What was the name of that pilot again?
Look well, yeah.
Yeah. Look well, good stuff.
But no, I don't
I'll
have
never
a song.
forget. I have that song stuck in my head still.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe Paul would regale us with a little couple of stanzas of "Take This Job and Shove It" or something. It seems to be a theme today.
Well, actually, there's a song popularized by the South Carolina broadcaster, which actually, interestingly enough, is based out of North Carolina, and it's gonna called "Miss Me When I'm Gone." You're gonna miss me when I'm gone. You're gonna miss me when I'm gone. Lord, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone. You're gonna miss me when I'm gone. You're gonna miss me when I'm gone. Lord, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone. When I'm gone.
When I'm gone.
When I'm gone.
For the weekend of September 22nd, Bill recommended Shivers, available on the Roku channel, Tubi, Mubi, Cult Picks, and Popcorn Flicks, and Scanners, available on Max and the Criterion channel. Paul recommended Delicious, available on Prime Video, Peacock, the Roku channel, and Hoopla, and Francis Ha, available on Netflix, Tubi, the Criterion channel, and Canopy. I recommended Unknown Visitor, available on Prime Video, the Roku channel, Tubi, and Plex, and Last Radio Call, available on the Roku channel, Vudu, and Tubi, and Shark Night, available on Tubi. Zachary recommended The Faculty, available on Paramount Plus, Hoopla, the Criterion channel, and Pluto, and Election, available on Max and Canopy.
So Renee, do you want to tell us the connection between the faculty?
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, so in the Cabin in the Woods, Bradley Whitford and we're talking, and he mentions how they had only he said that they'd only failed one time, and they said it was in a 19 an incident. It was in an incident in 1998 due to the chemistry department.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so the theory is that they were referring to the faculty, because then when you go into the cast and how they all kind of fit into the tropes and
Yeah.
Ah.
I was assuming they were referring to like the chemistry department of the place that they worked. But yeah.
well, it probably was, right?
Yeah, okay.
Because- Yeah.
By the way, I want to alert everybody, breaking news, and this just shows you the kind of bullshit that we got to deal with. Personnel from Joint Base Charleston, in close coordination with local authorities, claim that they have found the aircraft in a debris field. Listen, I may have been born at night, but I wasn't born last night. What are the odds that this thing would just so happen to crash in a debris field? Come on.
It's like elephants. Okay, they all know when it's their time. They know where to go to die, and where all the other F-35s went.
They're not even trying anymore.